with this session, you will understand what an industrial structure is, what are the types. Yeah. The main learning objective will be to have a basic understanding on the use of steel structures in construction industry, to learn about the behavior and properties of steel, to know about the different types of industrial structures, to learn about the various configuration of industrial buildings, the concept, that is how you will be reading the drawing and how you will be modeling that project in a stat file. Then how to an overview on load calculation. Here I have covered a lot in depth into dead load calculation, live load, and how to calculate the wind load. So since it's a steel structure, I have focused more into wind load kind. Since I've taken the project location as Chennai, where seismic is not a dominant case. And finally, you will be seeing how to do the analysis using StatPro. Okay, so okay, so now let's jump into the steel structures in industry. Okay, structural steel. It's not like the reinforcement steel. Structural steel is a category of steel used for making construction material in a variety of shapes. So if you see the structural steel shapes, it is like I beams, H beams, have high second moments of area, which means they are very stiff in respect to cross-sectional area, and thus can support a high load without excessive sagging. Guys, it will be of great help. Okay. Like it is available in different shapes like IH. Okay, thank you. So it is like available in different shapes like IH, and the choice of the material, that it depends upon the choosing the material type, that is whether you have to go in for an I section or a C channel or an angle section. So that depends upon the choice of the engineers, designers, architects, and fabricators. The innumerable benefits of structural steel are enough to make it one of the best material used in construction industry. Okay, it is most and it is most commonly used material due to its strength to weight ratio. And in most construction, mild steel is used, and it has an immense strength, which makes it an ideal choice for constructing buildings. Apart from the structural steel, it is good at tensile strength, ductibility, flexibility, and cost effective. Okay, and structural steel is widely used in the construction of high-rise buildings, bridges, industrial buildings, warehouse sheds, garages, etc. So why we have to go in with structural steel? Okay, so if you take structural steel, it's always more preferred kind of structural element than concrete, because it offers better tension and compression properties, thus resulting in lighter construction. Okay, if you take that is, the dead load will be less. So if you see the structural steel is not only a stronger material, but it also has higher strength to weight ratio when compared to other materials. It is also flexible, and it can be converted to any shape and size depending on the requirement of the project. It is also malleability and ductility make it most preferred metal for building skyscrapers, residential building, as I said, bridges, garages, etc. If you compare the strength, its high strength to weight ratio, the steel requirement will be very less. And the steel is needed in a single support or beam, reducing material cost, improving its sustainable nature. It can also withstand strong physical impacts and forces, keeping building occupants safe, and it will not wear away or need to be replaced afterwards. The life of the structural steel is also high. The only thing you have to consider is the like maintenance cost. Okay, the erection of structural steel consists of the assembly of steel components into a frame on site. It depends upon the project whether it can be considered as a industrial structure or a framed structure. So the project requirement, according to the project requirement, it can be molded. And the process involved, only it is, if you take any steel structure work, the main process involved is lifting and placing the components into position and connecting them together by bolting or by welding, side welding. So the assembled frame should be aligned before bolting. That is the special care that you need to consider while doing structural steel construction. And more and about the cost effective part, if you take, compared to other framing materials, structural steel brings greater value to the project in terms of initial cost, and also reduces the cost in other areas also, such as foundations, facade systems. So the overall cost of the project will comparatively lesser than other framed structures. And if you see, structural steel can be rolled and curved in any kind. If the project is of irregular shape also, you can use the steel material. So steel is the world's most, and if you take the recycling part, it is the most recycled construction material. And approximately, if you see, 40% of the steel production is based on recycled scrap. And steel used in construction has a very high rate of recycling at the end of life. So I think I made the made clearly understand on the uh, how the why we are going on with structural steel. Okay, so just a brief about all the why we are going on with normally structural steel, because if you see, no, now IT buildings also go on with or any high rise building or skyscrapers, if you take, they normally go on with structural steel as their outer frame, and they go on with a composite kind of deck slab. That is the it's called a composite structure. Okay, they will go on with a deck slab for acting as a slab. So this helps to reduce the dead load of the building, and thereby the height of the building can be increased. Okay, if you take this can be, if you comparatively, if you do the same kind of building using a concrete RCC kind of framed structure, the dead load will be heavy. Understood? It will be massive. So to reduce the dead load is why we are going on with structural steel kind nowadays in high rise buildings or skyscrapers. Now let's see the types of structural steel sections. So there are different types of structural steel sections. If you say these I beams, L shaped, C shaped, these are angles and channels that we normally say it in the market. If you can see in the code, you might have seen I beam sections, L shaped angles, C shaped channels, hollow section steel, pipes, T beams, etc. Right? So what an I beam is? It's an universe. It's normally used in all the projects as universal beam and universal column. All these I beams are used as, even though if it is named as I beam, it is normally used for columns also. So if you take I beam also known as a H beam because of the shape. No, it's also named as H beam, and it's the universal beam that is used mostly in all the projects. And this I beam has two horizontal elements: the flange, that is called the flange, and a vertical element, that is the web. The web is capable of resisting shear force, and the horizontal flanges will resist the most of the bending moment that occurs, most of the beams bending moment. Okay, so in the I shape is very effective in carrying shear and bending loads in a web plane. So the construction industry widely uses I beams in a variety of sizes. So depending upon the load acting on it, the sizes of the I beams vary, but the shape, the most of the construction industry prefers to have it as an I beam or a H beam. Both are one and the same. Okay, next is the angle. Angles are of L shaped with two legs that come together at an 90 degree. I think I have in my next sheet these are the build-up sections that I've said. These are the channels, and if you take, this is the angle, and this is an I-beam. As a separate section, this is an I-beam. This is an angle. Okay, angle beams take an L shape with two legs that come together at 90 degrees. And angle beams come in equal and unequal length. These lengths, no, may be varying. This will be of different size, and this will be of different size. So the L beams are typically used in floor systems because of the reduced structural depth. Because these L angles are mostly preferred. If you take the deck slab type, no, they prefer for L angles. So I was explaining about the angle. So I think you might have got an idea on I beam and an angle. Okay, so what is a C section? This is a channel that we have given back to back. Okay, if you take a normal C-shaped channel, that is the C. This is normally used for beams also, C beams also. So structural C channels, or it is also used as C beams, have a C-shaped cross section. Okay, so the channels are both top and bottom flanges and with a web connecting them. Okay, the C-shaped beams are cost-effective solutions for short to medium span structures. If the span is short, then you can go on with C-shaped for beams. Okay, channel beams were originally designed for bridges, but are popular for use in marine piers. If you take offshore structures and onshore structures, no, in that if you see marine piers, their C channels are widely used. The images, yeah. Next is a hollow section steel. So this is normally named as HSS. In a metal, the HSS is a metal profile that has a hollow tubular cross section. Okay, HSS can be square type or rectangular type, circular or elliptical type. Sorry. So HSS structures are rounded with radiuses that are about twice the thickness of the wall. This radius will be twice the thickness of the outer wall in an hollow steel structure. Okay. Normally we use these HSS sections in welded steel frames, for which where there is experience of loading in different directions, we normally use for hollow steel sections. Okay, pipe, if you take pipes, it is normally used for a tie rod type, or in structural steel pipes are important in the construction and application where where you need to have a strength and stability. So these are also hollow and cylindrical tubes that come in a variety of sizes. So depending upon the project type, these sizes vary, and these are mostly used to take up in oil and gas industry projects. So these kind of pipes are widely used in oil and gas projects. If you take T, this is also named as T beam. It's a load bearing beam with a T-shaped cross section. Okay, the top of the cross section is the flange with the vertical web below. So the T beams can withdraw large loads. So, but the the bottom flange of the I beam. So the only disadvantage is it doesn't have a bottom flange like how we have it in an I beam. Okay, so these are the different types of steel sections that are widely used in all the project types, that is in the construction of industrial structures and warehouse structures. Okay, built up sections. If you take built up sections, it is more of combination of that is if the sections are combined as two or more, if you take any hot roll sections like C channels, we have combined this depending upon the project's design requirement. The sizes of these channels will be revised, not as per the market availability sizes. So in that case, we go on with built up sections. So this is normally a combination of two or more hot rolled sections joined together at intervals, are called build-up sections. Okay, the joining is done with the help of direct welding, or we may connect it in the form of a plate, so that the thickness or the width of the flange will get increased. So if you take this as an example, you can see two angles joined together. So this is an angle back to back built up section. If you see here, an I section with a C channel is made added to this section. So these are two channels which are combined together, right? So this is again an example for built up section. So when the required section properties or the moment of inertia or shear area, etc., are more than the available section. So for every steel sections we have in the table, if you see, we have a specified moment of inertia, shear area, everything. So as per the design requirement, if you want a higher moment of inertia or a shear area, then than the available sections, then as per if you see SP6 code, SP6, you can see the table, right? So if that is more than the more, if the requirement as per the design is more, then you have to go on with built up sections that are fabricated for the required depth and width by combining the number of plates. Here if you see, then plates are added. So to an I section, to increase the thickness of the web, the plates are added. So this is how the built up sections are. Okay, so next is a main criteria that we have to understand is the steel behavior and its properties. You might have seen the stress strain curve. We might have talked about a lot in civil engineering courses about stress strain curve, what is it and all those things, right? So what is a stress? So stress is defined as the force experienced by the object which causes a change in the object. Okay, if there is any change in an object when a force is applied, then it is called a stress. And strain is defined as a change in shape of the object. Okay, if there is any change in shape of the object, then it is strain. So this is what a stress strain curve is all about. And if you see, a stress strain curve is nothing, is a graphical way to show the reaction of a material when the load is applied. When you are applying any load, this stress strain curve indicates the uh, graphical way, that is, it just represents how the behavior is. There are many regions, that is the elastic region, plastic region, this is the yield point, and how it gets hardening and necking and failure. So let's see in depth how what it is. Before that, this stress strain curve shows the comparison between stress and strain, okay, acting on a material. So stress is the ratio of the load or force to the cross section area of the material to which load is applied. Okay, and the stress strain curve describes the behavior of the material under loads. It is described normally to identify, to come up with the stress strain curve. No, what we normally do is we will be testing a steel specimen, in which the steel specimen is gradually pulled through a testing machine until it breaks, and the stress and the corresponding strain is measured. Okay, it's recorded. That is how we come up with this stress strain curve. Okay, so this stress strain curve visually displays the material deformation in response to tensile, compressive, and torsional load. Okay, depending upon the material tested, a stress strain curve can indicate key properties of the building, key properties of the material, including elastic, plastic, yield point, and ultimate tensile strength. So all these regions will be covered in a stress strain curve. So let us dive deep into these regions. What are these regions and why it is when it is occurring? Okay, if you take this elastic region, this is the starting of the while you're doing the test, this is the first stage, right? So the deformation here is temporary. Okay, so this is called the elastic deformation, and the specimen can always return to its original form once the force is removed. So in the elastic stage, the specimen can always return back. And in the plastic region, the deformation, this is the plastic region, and where the yield point also comes. So in the plastic region, the deformation is permanent. So the plastic, this is the plastic deformation, and the stress is this stress is the yield stress. So the yield point, so the if you take the yield point, it is the beginning of the steel where the plastic curve starts. No, that is this starting of the beginning of the yield point, and that is the upper yield point. Whereas when it goes down, when the curve flattens to a point where the plastic deformation ends, that is the lower yield point. Okay, then the process of strain hardening starts, which happens normally after the plastic region. The rising curve, this is the rising curve in strain hardening, right? So the rising curve flattens for further increase in load until it reaches an ultimate stress. So this way till the strain hardening gets increased until it reaches the ultimate tensile strength. And in the necking and fracture region, after ultimate stress, cross-sectional area of the material narrows, and further increase in load leads to fracture. So this is the point where the failure happens. Okay, after this ultimate tensile strength, it lowers and gets failure happens. So this is how the stress strain curve is explained in detail. So these are the different area, like I explained, elastic, yield point, plastic, strain hardening, and necking and failure. This is what all the points that I've explained here. Okay, so I think you got a clarity on the stress strain curve. Okay, So these are the stress strain curves for different types of steels, and the color indicates the the maximum tensile strength that it can withstand. Okay, so now let's see the properties of steel. So these are the main properties of steel that helps us to use these structural steel as an construction material, important construction material in the industry. So the tensile properties of structural steel, the yield points, strength and modulus of elasticity obtained from various tests will be the same. Okay, so if you take the shear property, that is the shear modulus of elasticity G. That is a ratio of shear stress to shear strain during the initial elastic behavior. Okay, if you take creep, creep is a gradual change in strain under constant stress. And it usually not significant for structural steel framing in buildings. Expert, if you come across some fire incidents, then creep normally occurs because of the high temperature that it produces. Okay, so next is the relaxation. Relaxation is a gradual decrease in load or stress, and it is a significant concern in the application of steel. If you take any pre-stressing work happening, no, that is where when we give a stress and then we release it slowly onto the steel tendons, the pre-stressing occurs. So that is where the relaxation property of the steel is there. So if you take hardness and fatigue, hardness is the production of steel to estimate tensile strength, and to check the hardness is determined as a number related to resistance to indentation. Okay, these are just the properties that I just thought I will explain you on. So now let's see the disadvantages of structural steel. If you take the structural steel, the main disadvantage is it's prone to corrosion. It's because it's an alloy of ions, right? So this makes it prone to corrosion, and this problem can be solved to some extent using anti-corrosion applications. So proper maintenance has to be done to avoid this corrosion activity. So they are extensive fireproofing cost involved, as steel is not a fireproof. If you have come up with an fire accident, then there will be a major loss because of that, as the length of the and because of the higher length of the columns, there will be a buckling effect, which is a major issue with steel structures. So special care needs to be taken while designing the columns in a using a steel structural element. Also it requires regular maintenance, that I have already explained, right, in the corrosion itself. So next is the types of industrial structures. So these are some of the types of industrial structures that are normally in a project. If you take industrial structures, many industrial sheds may be of monolithic roof, or that is a pitched roof or a monoslope roof. If you take manufacturing facilities, they also go on with an industrial structure. PEB warehouse sheds, where the span of the building should be heavy, they go on with PEB warehouse sheds. And distribution centers, that is a power distribution centers, they normally go on with steel structures. If you take storage, or that is a warehouse or cold storage systems, where the outer frame will be packed with steel structure, normally with L angles or C sections, and then they will be going on with cold structures. And pipe rack structures. Pipe rack structures, if you take, these are the structures which are used to if you want to transport one material to one building to another building to through pipes, then that is where you can see the usage of pipe rack structures. And if you see any oil and gas projects, pipe rack structures plays an important role. And others are process buildings, where you have silos or any other buildings that will be of an industrial structure type. Okay, so how do we configure these structural steel buildings? So how you will be there are different kinds. Like I said, you can go in with a PEB type, whether you can go on with a conventional type of steel structure, or you can go on with a PB, that is a build up section kind of type. Depending upon the span, depending upon the height, or depending upon the project specification, is what you'll be coming upon the configuration, on deciding the configuration of the building, right? The simplest configuration is you have to provide two columns with a beam. That is the simplest configuration with equal spacing. That is what you will be following. Next is the portal frames. If you take a portal frame, that is column to column connected with a normal frame, right? If you take that, these are normally used for low rise structures. I will be showing one portal frame as an example while designing a project. So this is like low rise structures which has a columns and horizontal and beams and a pitched rafter or a conventional truss, okay, connected by moment resisting connections. Okay, this forms a continuous frame structure stable in its plane and provides a clear span that is unobstructed by bracings, extensively used. These are the kind of uh, framed structures that are widely used in industrial factories and warehouse structures. Okay, next is rigid frame. If you take rigid frame structures, uh, this is a type of frame where the beam to column connections are classified as rigid. So the beam to column connections will be rigid here. And when you are designing a rigid, why I'm going on with one kind of structure is when this kind of structure decides you where you have to provide a pinned support or a roller support or a fixed support or a fixed butt support, depending upon the structure and the foundations. What you are going to provide depends upon the supports that you're going to provide in stat. Okay, so in this type of rigid frames, the beam to column connections will be rigid. And when a rigid frame structure is subjected to a vertical load, it is also picked up by the beams and eventually it is transferred to the columns to the grounds. Okay, there are different types of rigid frames. You can make it like a frame with fixed column base, or frame with hinged column base, frame with lattice girders and suspended portal frames. So next is column beam structures. So column beam structure is nothing you can see here, right? It's a column. The column and beam steel frame structures have a skeleton of steel connected by bolts, and or it will be welded. So either by connection, the connection will be of a welded connection, or the connection will be of a bolted connection, so that the support for the rest of the, so it supports the rest of the building. So here a braced frame has a web of smaller members acting to stabilize and provide rigidity to the frame, which is generally a simple pin connection. When you are doing a rigidity frame, then it is normally a simple pin connection while you are designing. These are arc structures. Nowadays you can see these kind of structures in metro stations and airports and all those arc kind of structures, right? So these are curved structures with good load carrying behavior and have it provides a pleasant experience when you're providing this arc kind of structures. So when you're designing this kind types, no, you have to keep in mind that you have to provide a hinged arc structure, or a structure elevated on column, or arc structure using space frame type, or elevated curve truss. So these are the things that you have to focus on while configuring the arc structures. So next is spatial structures. Spatial structures, if you see, so the behavior of these structure under loads can be approximated as two-dimensional, that is planar structures, or three-dimensional, that is called the that is the space of a spatial structure. So in general, these structures behave in three dimensions when subject to loads. However, for a large number of structures, one can assume that most deformations and distribution of forces occur within a plane. So this will be the deformation and distribution will be happen only within a plane. So many typical framed structures will come under this category only. So for spatial structures, uh, that like I said, it behaves in 3 dimensions. So these structures such as grids, domes, barrel wallets, towers, cable nets belong to this category. Okay. However, uh, if you take what actually the term spatial or space structure refers to is it's an assembly of linear members interconnected to each other in space, resisting the loads applied at their connections or along their lengths. So if you are applying a load, it will resist at their connections or along their lengths. So these spatial structures can be made of steel, aluminum, wood. Normally it is preferred to be steel. Okay. The members of spatial structures are interconnected and they can distribute the loads effectively. That is an important feature of a spatial structure. And it also the cost, it gives a low self weight for these structures, and the total cost of the, thereby reducing the total cost of the foundation and columns are relatively small. Okay. So spatial structures, one more advantage is it can be assembled in a shop and transported to the site for erection. Only erection is done at site. So if you have a space constraint, then you can always go in with erection alone at the site. Okay. Like how we do the PEB kind of structures. Okay. So next is the portal frame again. So this kind of structure is widely used, as I said, for industrial sheds, and it combines the efficiency and functional application for any building. Okay. So the different configuration, it can be developed in different configurations with the same structural concept, and the secondary components, that is the purlins that we provide at the rooftop, will enhance the stability of the framework. Okay. We can also use corrugated web or another web frames also to improve the stability of that structure. Next is these are the different types of portal frames that you can consider while you are designing an industrial building. So you can just see the different kinds. This is a medium span and this is a curved portal frame type which can be used. And if you see this, this is a normal industrial portal frame structure with a mezzanine floor where you want to have provide any heavy equipments here. Here, if there is any movement of cranes, then you can plan the portal frame in such a way that the cranes run in between the column to column distance. Next is the 2-bay portal frame, where you can, if the span, to reduce the span of the overall length, width of the building, you can provide a, in between a column and you can make it as a 2-bay portal frame. And here it is like one side will be a workshop and this will be an office. So portal frame with integral office. These are the options of portal frame that you can go on with if you are considering, depending upon the project requirement. Okay. Next, let's see about the lattice truss, and then we will move on to the project. Okay. So if you take lattice trusses, these are normally used in industrial buildings with large spans. And the bracing system provides structure stability. So it provides more stability to the structure. So if you see the bracings that we are providing in lattice kind of structure, no, it helps to create a rigid frame connection. And lattice structure provides high stiffness and load bearing resistance and enables simple service integration. So normally this is used as a designed as a pinned structure only. And sections used in lattice structures are like angle sections, hollow tubes, box sections, and channel sections. So I will show some of the types of lattice that we normally go in with. So this is a W form of lattice girder that we normally use in a project, and this is called an N form. So only the W form and N form will be of lightweight channels or angle sections that we will be using for designing the structure. And this is a curved lattice girder where you have a fixed flat roof at the bottom and the curved roof at the top. And this is just it also acts as a canopy here. This is an extended cantilever portion of the lattice truss that acts as an extended canopy. So if you take this, depending upon the elevation also, we normally go on with an articulated bowstring lattice truss, and also this is a monopitch lattice girder with another canopy attached to it. Okay. So these are the some of the types of lattices. So now let's go through a concept drawing, which I will be starting to model for you in STAT, showing you in STAT. So this is a plan of an industrial. So before that, guys, if you have any queries, you can ask me. So now I'm just going to enter into the STAT portion. So guys, you have any queries? If you have any queries, you can just type it in the chat box so that I can just clarify your queries till this, or if you feel that is it fine that I can proceed on. Okay, fine, great. So next I will go on with the explanation. So if you are getting involved in a project, so first you have to consider is what is this total length and width of the building. So the length and width of the building. So now your the length and width of the building depends upon the uh, industrial requirement. So what the building is going to be used for, whether it is for an manufacturing building, or whether it is an warehouse, or whether it is a industrial kind of structure, whether you have a heavy machinery coming up, whether you have a crane. All these details you should have a look at it before framing the plan. Okay, so that you have to take special care on the length and width of the building. So here I am going on with a 30-meter span length building with a width of 15 meters. Okay, so I have this 30 meters. What I have done is I have provided columns every 5 meters span. So that wherever I've provided a grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is where my columns are located. So these are the grids 1 to 7, and this is the longitudinal grid A and B. So the span width of the building is 15. So the length of the building is 30, and the columns are placed at every 5 meters span. Okay, so for this project, I have used European table. So when I'm going to the STAT, I will explain you what are the different types of tables that are used. Okay, so this is an in-house project that we are working on. So that's why I've used this project for you to explain. So if you see the side elevation of this building along grid A or B, you can see the column at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 grids, and the height of the building is 6 meters, and the columns are placed at a span of 5 meters. This is the bracing that I have provided to resist the lateral forces. Okay. So next is the front elevation of the building. So when you are seeing the building from the front, that is from this side. Okay. So you will be seeing a view with a rafter type building with 6-meter height, and the total span of the width of the building is 15 meters. Okay. So this is the same for all the grids. I'm showing the grid 1. So this is the same for all the grids. Grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's a normal small industrial building. Okay. So now let's see what are the loads. Let me create this building in STAT. I'm just going to STAT. I'm going to create a new project. Okay. So I'm going to create an industrial building. So this is an analytical. This is a new version of STAT Pro Connect Edition. STAT Connect Edition is a newly available software in the market from Bentley. Okay. So this, yeah. So you want me to create a building, or you want to explain how, whether you have to create, you want me to create this geometry and explain, or how you want. So that's what I just want to get a clarity on that. So guys, if you can just leave me a message whether you want me to create. Yeah, so I'm going to create a new file depending upon the project that we have discussed. So I'm just giving the X as 1, 0, 0. So one node is created. We have different methods to create a model in STAT. Okay, so this is one method of giving the length and width here. So always this will be the X, that is the width of the building, or the length, you can take it. Z will be the width, then this is the length, and Y will be the height. So it's a three-dimensional is what you are going to create, right? So just let me create it as a 5-meter spacing. So you can see, right? So I'm just going to create nodes every 5-meter interval. I don't know why it is not creating. One minute, guys. So I'm just, this is another methodology to create. So you can go on with an STAD editor, or you can go on with creating a industrial building with nodes here. And you can also, here we have a transit, I think, 1 minute. We have a transitional repeat here, normally used to develop or create nodes of 5-meter spacing, how many steps you want. Normally we can create it in the Z direction first for 15 meters, and then because here the width of the building is 15 meters, right? So I'm just going to create a first on the width 2 base, and then I'm going to, yeah, now you got it, right? So this, if you see, measure the distance, this is 15 meters and this is 4 meters. So now I have to change the, I'm going to, I think somehow something happened there, and now I'm just selecting the nodes and just gonna delete that node because we want it as a 5-meter spacing, right? So I will just so these are the two nodes that I've created, and just I'm going to the transitional repeat, and I'm just going in the X direction. I want to create 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 6 nodes, right? So I want to give 6 steps of 5-meter span, and just have to click on OK. Now got it. So this is how I have created the whole building, and I want to now increase the, this is just the base of the building, right? Now I have to increase it to a, before that I have to just go and check in the so the column height is 6 meters, above which we have to provide a rafter also. So it is like I have to transitional repeat, I have to provide it at a height of, if you see y direction, I want to increase the height of the column. So y direction, I want to go 6 meters. Understood? Got it? And I have to click OK. So I get created the columns. Now I'm going to create, if you have any queries, you can just stop me and ask so that I can just clear it then and there. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm just going to add beams. So now let me check the dimensions if it is correct before proceeding on, so that we no need to delete. Yeah, now all the dimensions are correct. So I'm removing the node dimension. So now I'm just creating the beam. Add beam. So you have various icons here. First, I will just explain. This is what the translational repeat I used on for creating the project, creating the nodes. This is a circular repeat. Here it is used. This is a move node. These are the GUIs that I'm explaining you. This is a merge node. This is the numbering for nodes. This is the add beam thing that we have to use for creating the columns or beams. So here, this is the insert node concept. If you see here, this is the connect beams and along. Okay, so if you see, this has got connected, right? So this is how we normally use it in the okay. So this is how we connect the beams totally for all the x-axis and y-axis. And if you see this, this is used for intersect any selected beams and to highlight any beams. And if you see this, this is used for connecting the beams. These are the all plate elements that we use for creating, if you are designing a water tank, these plate elements are used to create like plates like thing. So here now, I think cursor, 1 minute, I will just share the image also. Yeah. Yeah. So if you see here, now we have come up with these columns to be raised and the rafters, right? So next, we have now fixed all the columns for 5 meter span. And here now we have to extend the rafter and the column part, right? Okay. So now I am creating the, 1 minute, give me some time. I'm just creating the building for you to view. So I'm creating columns, just connecting the two nodes. Um, okay, so now I want to see the total height of the building. So I'm assuming the total height of the building as because it's not given in the project, right? So the height of the column is 6. So I'm taking a small curved 15. So I'm just connecting the model in such a way that the I'm just if you take the utilities, I'm just measuring the node to node distance, and I'm just providing a center 7.5. I'm just going to create a pitched roof here so that my rafter gets connected. So I think till now it is clear, right? How I am creating. You can create the geometry in various spaces like grids, or you can use the STAD editor, where if you see here, I will just show that also so that you get an idea on how to create in a STAD editor. Mm, 1 minute, because this GUI is little bit confusing. This is the 3D rendering for what you have to see the how you want to view your plan. So this is what the plan view, top view of the building. So if you see here, this is the side view, how the columns are placed. So you can provide bracings here. So this is the front view. Here is where you have planning to provide the rafters. So now I am just displaying the whole structure, right? So these are the icons that are used, various icons. So so I think I will just take you through all the icons. So till this page I have just shown you the icons. So solid normally we use for solid creation of models. And next is the view. So here are the different view options that are available. If you take these, this is the node type selection of label. If you want to see this node alone, then you can just go select this node value and node number, and then you can view it. This is the member selection, this is the plate selection, and this is the solid cursor. So if you want to zoom a particular thing in STAD, then just you have to just use the zoom window, and this is for viewing the displaying the whole structure that you have created. These are the different zoom options that are available in STAD Connect edition. These are the three, like I said, these are the views, that is whether it is a plan view or a side view or a front view that you have to go provide on. And this is just to rotate your image is what these options are provided, right? So this is what and these are the node numbers and these are the member numbers. Okay, so if you want to select and separate see, this is the beam cursor, and I've just now made the view available for the whole structure, and now I am just wanted to view a s- simple beam, and you can just go to the mm view thing and just view the selected object. So now I'm just showing as a small example here, and these are and again, if you want to view the whole display, then you can just go to the display whole structure, and these are the specifications that are available, whether it is a data the I normally the properties database is here nowadays added in StatPro Connect Edition here itself. If you want a tapered view, then this is the icon that you have to use. And if you want to assign the beam property, you can just select this member, provide assign, then the section database will open up. And if it is in steel, then you can provide here. If it is in concrete member, then you can provide whether it is a beam and column and then assign it here. So these are different node options that are available, and these are the supports that are available if you are going on with fixed support. Normally earlier we used to in V8 we used to have it in the property section here, like define, and we have to define the property, right? So now in Connect Edition it is well was advanced that you can just pick up from the icons provided in the top of the screen. If you want to, what are the supports that you have to provide for the structure, whether it is a fixed support or whether it is a pinned support, or you can always custom your support depending upon the way that you are going to provide. These are the load options, whether you're going is on for a UDL, you have to just click on the primary load cases and the combination. These are many loads and load cases that you will be using for the for designing analysis, doing analysis for a building. So then this is the analysis and design screenshot, where you have to do a pre-analysis, post-analysis, and you can run the analysis and you can view the load list alone. For particular load list, you can view these options of behavior of the building. Okay, and in the utilities, you can just, these are where the common things that you can view. This is the command file editor. I'm just saving the structure. So this is the stat editor. Normally we have it in the V8i. Normally we can also here by manually you can edit the numbers, and you can come up with an create starting from 100. You can just create a node and start creating a structure. Okay, and if you see, you can group all these columns together using the group menu. Just you have to click on the group, and you which all the beams you have to group it, and you can name it as column. If you want to group all the beams, horizontal beams along x-axis, you can just select it, group it as x beams, and then all the columns as because we have a option of beam only, where you can group it as columns and beams separately, so that you can, while application of loads, it will be very useful for you and you can do it easily. On clicking on the duplicate nodes, the system will just check whether you have two nodes on that, whether you have created a single node or you have two nodes created on that. And if you have any orphan nodes which is not used in the model and created somewhere when you are creating a huge model, then you can just identify that orphan nodes and then you can just delete it off. The same way, if there is any duplicate beams created, or if you have any overlapping not done properly, or it is not intersected, then the load will not get properly distributed. So in that case, you can just go on with these options check, and you can check whether it is done properly. And this is a normal calculator, and while preparing the reports, you can use these take picture and copy picture icons, and you can just click a picture of this, and then you can use it for the final report. Okay, so these are the icons, different icons, and this is the beam. If you want to move beams, or you have, for example, I'm just creating a beam here. Okay, and I'm just uh, creating and inserting a node, right? I'm just node cursor, I'm just inserting. Just you can just, if you want to create a node here, just you can just click on the create. 1 minute. Yeah, I'm just going to create a node, and yeah, sorry. So nodes, right? So I want to partial 11. Do you want to turn it? Yes. So I'm just creating, planning to create a node here. Why it is not creating? You can move the nodes here. So insert node. I'm just inserting a node at a distance, add midpoint. I'm just creating a midpoint here, and I'm just clicking on it. Okay, so I'm just planning to move this node at a distance of, just to create my rafter. Okay, I'm just planning to move this node at a distance of, say 1.5 meters, because already we have provided 6 meters height, right? So I'm just moving this node. I've just not selected the node, right? Node cursor, I've just selected the node. I'm just moving the node. Move node. I'm just moving the origin itself, right? No, not much. Move node, move origin to 7.5 meters. Okay. So, or else I will just go on with the translation repeat. Why? 0.5 meters. Okay. So I'm just going to select this beam cursor and this, and delete it, and I'm just going to add beams here. So in this case, now I've created a rafter kind, and I want to just show you how to find the, you can always transitional repeat. I feel handy on using this translational repeat thing. So I'm just going to click on the beam mouser, select the beams. I'm just going to translational repeat every 5 meters, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 times I'm just going to step it up every 5 meters on the selected beams along x direction. Okay. So I've just created my all the frames. So I'm if you see the side plan, I have to create it at the top. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to create add beam, and I'm just going to connect this structure. So if you see in the latest StatPro Connect edition, they have this sequence is what we have to follow. First we have to do the geometry, then we have to assign the properties, then we have to select the materials, whether it is a steel building or a concrete building. Then we have to provide the specification, then we have to go on with the supports, then we have to do the loading, then the analysis and design. So this is the process that we have to follow on doing a on doing a building design in StatPro. So now we are in the geometry phase. So I'm just seeing whether the top is tied with a tie rod. Yes, we have to provide a tie center beam also to connect all the. So I hope you all remember that we have also in the plan that we have received, we have provided the bracing also. So now we are providing the bracings also. I'm just creating all the beams required in one stretch so that you get an idea on how it is created. Okay, I'm not providing bracings in the after one because since I am doing the design for lateral force, wind force as a dominant case, I've just considered this as a bracing, not at the end bay, but at the bay after the end bay. Okay. So now the model is almost done. So now this is what the geometry is. Next, we will be going on with the properties and how we have to provide on with the supports. Okay, so I think now it is clear on the properties. So if you have any queries on the properties type, you can just ask me. So if while after application of wind load, if you have any deflection or sway, because in this building we can't expect that kind of deflection because the span is just 15 meters. In that case, you have to provide top bracings also. So now I'm just going on to the material properties on providing the properties for this material for this building. So if you have any queries, guys, please ask me in the chat box so that I can clear it off. Loading, I'm coming up. Yeah, I'm coming up. I'm just giving the modeling, and I will just give the materials, and then I will be going on with the loading. Yeah. So because many people don't know how to model it, that's why I'm just clearly explaining. I have a modeled building already in my folder, but I just want to teach you the model part also. Okay. Okay. So, okay, now let's go on with the properties part, where here I'm just going to select the section base, or you can just, yeah, and define the properties. So as I said, in the project requirement, we have an IPE shape and HT and HE shape properties provided in the as per the client requirement. So for the columns, I am providing the HE300B property. So I'm just selecting the HE shape 300B. Okay. So 300A. So this I'm just clicking on and I'm adding it. Okay. So for all the columns, I'm just selecting on with a shift control and I'm going to assign it for all the columns. The same way I'm just selecting this part also and then assigning it for all the columns. Okay. So the next specification, if you see, is the beams. It is IPE 200. IPE 200 for side beams. Okay. So and HE 300B from the rafters. So I'm just this is the same HE 300B for the rafters also. So I'm just selecting the rafters also, column and rafters for HE 300B. And if you see, now I've given properties for columns and rafters. So next is the beam, which is IPE 200. For that, I have to just select on the day from the section database. I'm just
I have to select the I think it's, yeah, European type, IPE 200, IPE 200. So I'm just adding it to my property set and I'm just providing it to the beams. This you can make it as Indian sections also. You can provide I-beams. These are all I-beams only in European sections. I will show you a 3D image of that so that you get more idea. So this is fine. So the center tie is alone is missing. So that is also IP200. So I'm just moving on forward with selecting the same member for the center. Yeah. So now the bracings that I need to provide is 75 by 6 2L. So that is the bracing angle that I need to provide. So angle I have to select as 75 by 75 by 6. Normally this angle we go on with the maximum availability in the market. Okay, 75 by 75 by 6. So I've just added it. I'm just going to assign it for the bracings. Okay, so I will just show the, I've just provided the properties. So I'm just showing the 3D rendering. So if you see, all the structural elements are provided with the material properties. Okay, so now I have done with the material properties. Now all the materials are steel. So you can just, if you have doubt, you can just click on so that you can see, right? Yeah. So this beta angle is, if you want to rotate the column, then you have to provide this beta angle specification. You have to create a beta angle and you have to rotate the column in case of, if you are going on a 400, if you say for example, if you are taking a 450 by 500 beam in RCC, if you want to give the X and Y Z direction change, so then in that case you can create a beta angle for 90 degree and then you can change that. Just for your information, I just informed that. Okay, now we are in steel building. So now let's go on with the specification. So if you have, if you want to, normally in the specification, what you have to see is the release part. Normally you have to do a release, member release is normally done if you are providing, in the case of an RCC structure, the member is if you are releasing or not, the same thing should be implicated in your design also. Okay, if moment is not released in secondary beam, it will develop to torsional moment in the primary beam. That is where we have to release this member in the RCC part. Hence, while designing the primary member, you need, if you are not releasing, then you have to design it for that torsional moment also. In case of steel structures, in additional to this torsion check, if you should also design connections accordingly, whether it is rigid or flexible. And if it is a pinned connection, then you should release all the moments. So for bracings all, you have to select the member first. See, you have to select this member, you have to go to beam. It is the start stage where you have to release, and MX and MI and add it. So this way you have to release all the members here. Okay, so in the bottom also you have to go and release it for this member. So the same way you have to click on end, and you have to just click on the MX and MY and add it. So this is how you have to provide member release on all the bracings and all these beams where you have to release all the members. Okay, if I show it for each and every beam, then it is a time consuming process. So that this is how you will provide the member release specification. Next is the supports. So if you see the supports, there are different kinds of supports,
and one is fixed, one is pinned, one is a fixed butt. This is what normally we will be using for an industrial building. And if it is a raft, then we go on with a multi spring and all these kinds of other supports. Okay, so the type of the support mainly depends upon the foundation that you are going to provide. If you are designing a braced frame, then you probably don't need to provide a fixed support. Okay, pin support is cheaper and requires very smaller pedestals. So this is a braced frame, right? So if you are designing a moment frame, you probably still want to try it with a pinned support. But if your deflection is excessive, then again you have to change it to a fixed support. So depending upon, to control the deflection also, you can go on with a fixed support. And what is this fixed butt? Normally I go on with a fixed butt, where you can provide conditions and allow the user to define which degrees of freedom of the node are free and which are fixed. So it is something similar to a pinned support, but the pinned support is equivalent to a fixed butt, where the moment is not allowed, but the rotation is allowed. Okay, so I have to just click on the node cursor, and so I am just taking the node cursor and I am just keeping the view in the front. So yeah, 1 minute. So I can choose all these nodes and this side nodes for providing the support. See, if you can see, all the bottom nodes are covered. So I'm just going to create a fixed butt where I am going to allow rotation only in the 1 minute. MX direction alone. Okay, so I'm just going to allow it in the MX direction alone and add it. So I've just assigned it. If you see this support, I've just provided it and change it, and I'm just providing it in the, to choose the supports, I'm just clicking on the supports and I'm assigning it. Okay, I think now it is visible. This is the fixed butt support. Okay, so now I'm just stepping on to the support. Next is the loading part. Okay, I'm just sharing the PPT now to explain you on the loading part. So coming to the loading part. So if you take any building, so I think the modeling, support, and all other activities are clear for you people, right? Okay, so these are the gravity. So there are two kinds of loads that are applied on a building model. One is the gravity load and the lateral load. If you take the gravity load, the dead load, live load, snow load, all comes under the gravity load combinations. Okay, so if you take dead load, the self-weight of the structure is a dead load, and mainly the dead load depends upon the dimension of the structure, the material used, and if any heavy materials, if there is any process equipment or pipes running on, or cable tray, all these comes under the dead load category. That are dead loads are loads that cannot be moved. That is the permanent loads that are going to rest on that building. Okay, so so if you see here, in normally in steel buildings, we take a self-weight factor of 1.05 is normally considered in the analysis, because that 5% is the increase for accommodating the connections and unmolded parts is what we normally use it in industrial design. And apart from the self-weight, the loads of the building materials will be considered, that is to calculate the unit weight. If anything needs to be calculated as per IS 875 part 1, we will be taking it into considerations. So the dead load itself, apart from the self-weight of the structure, there are other kind of dead loads also. That is the operating dead load, when the machine is operating any solid, any test dead load, or erection dead load during the time of erection, any other specific dead load is going to act. Everything needs to be taken care. And the codes that are normally followed is IS 875 part 1 and ASCE. So if you take the live load, it is also a static load, and normally live loads are considered as per IS 875 part 2 depending upon that building type, whether it is an industrial building or commercial building or school building or hospital building, it is considered. And for a specific rooms like kitchen, dining, if it is a corridor or staircase, specific live load norms are provided in the codes that needs to be followed. And if there is any other miscellaneous equipment load, or if you have a HVAC platform, and if you want a if there will be an accessible platform, then a person load need to be considered on that. If there is any wheel loads, then that needs to be considered. So all the live loads needs to be considered with reference to IS 875 part 2. And snow load, normally we don't do it in the southern part of India, but in the northern part it is mandatory, and it is designed for gravity loads depending upon the accumulation of snow on the roof. This is calculated depending upon that, and we have a specific code on IS 875 which specifies all the snow loads that needs to be considered in that criteria. Okay, next is the wind load. Wind load and the seismic loads are the dynamic loads, and these are the lateral loads. And what you have to keep it in mind is, when you are designing a building, you will be applying the wind loads and the seismic loads, but you will be designing for analysis, you will be applying the wind load and the seismic load, but for doing the design, you will be considering the worst case of the lateral load. So in this building, I have taken the worst case as a wind load, because seismic, this building is located in seismic. So I have not considered the seismic load. So for wind load, you have to follow this IS 875 part 3. So this wind load mainly depends upon the wind velocity, size and shape of the building that is acting on that laterally, on the building laterally. And the seismic load is of different types, and in tomorrow's session we will be explaining in detail about this earthquake engineering. Okay, so I am limiting today's session with wind load calculation alone. So this sudden load that occurs when layers of earth crust slide, no, that is where seismic load is developed. So these are other impact loads. When you are considering an industrial building, the service and static load, everything, the vibration, amplification factor, thermal loads, blast loads, everything needs to be considered in a huge industrial building. So these are I'm just giving you an overview of that. So these are the gravity load path. So from floor, the load gets transferred to the roof deck, and from roof deck it transferred to the beams, and from beams to girders, and then to columns and foundations. If you take the lateral load path, this is the gravity load path, that is from the vertical load path. If you take the lateral load path, that is the wind and the seismic forces, it gets transferred. The lateral force resisting system, from it gets transferred to the column. It normally the columns are designed for lateral forces. So if you see the wind load application also, no, in StatPro we will be providing for the columns only. So these in seismic, it is like joint weights. We apply it in the joint weights, calculating the overall area. So this from columns, it gets transferred to the foundations. So normally in a structure, no, it is like there will not be any sudden failure of the structure. There will be developing cracks, and that is how the whole structure is the structural system needs to be designed. So if you take the load calculation, like how I said, if you see the I will share the model now, where I have already, yeah, I'll share this model. So this is the, yeah, I'll share this model. I think the model is visible right now. Yeah. So this is how the loads. Now we are seeing the loads path. If you see the dead load, here I've calculated I've selected all the members, and I've given the self weight as normally we provide it as 1, -1, that is gravity load. No, so we provide it as -1. Since we in a steel structure, you have some bolts and nuts added to it, we provide it as -1.05. Okay, so how we have come up with this live load? Now I'm sharing my yeah, in PPT. If you see, this is the live load calculation. So in live load, you have to refer, as I said, IS 875 part 2, depending upon the industrial building. And if you have any mezzanine floor or industrial equipments occupied in that, then you have to provide that flooring. Apart from that, the main thing you have to consider is the load in the roof. Okay, there is a clause in IS 875. I don't know whether you might have seen. There is a table 2 which says if the roof is accessible, then you have to provide a 1.5 kilonewton per meter square uniform loading should be considered. And if it is not accessible for maintenance, then it is 1.75. Okay, to calculate this, the column to column, how this calculation is done. So if you take this 1.5 is for, now I have considered my model as accessible roof because maintenance will be done, right? So I have taken 1.5, and this total column to column sizing is 5 meters, right? So I have measured the value is 7.5 kilonewton per meter. And for the end rafter, if you see, this is the end rafter. So for any building loads calculation, the column to column distance is 5 meter. So if you are applying any wind load also, half of the load will go to this column and half of the load will go to this column. The same way, rafter to rafter distance is also 5 meters. So half of the load will go to this end bay and half of the load will come to this rafter. If you take this to this rafter, half of the load will come to this rafter and half of the load will come to this rafter, right? So when you're comparing, when you're doing the calculation for the middle rafters, it is 5 meters is what you have to consider, because half of 2.5 from here and half of 2.5 from here. But for the end rafters, it is only 2.5. So that is how the calculation is made. If you see, for the mid rafter, it is 1.5 into 5, which is 7.5. And for the end rafter, it is 1.5 into 2.5, which is 3.75. And if you now see the model, the 7.5 is applied, that is 1.5 into 5. So 7.5 is applied in the middle rafters, and at the end rafters, it is 1.5 into 2.5, that is half the center to center distance. So 3.75 is applied. This is how the application of live load is for rafters for accessible roof. And if you have any cable trays or HVAC ducts that is hanging from the rafter, then you have to, at that point, you have to provide a point load and for the where the cable trays are hanging. Okay, that depends upon the project requirement that you have to consider for live load. So now let's go on with the wind load calculation. I hope the dead load and live load is clear now. So now I will take time to explain you in detail how the wind load is calculated. Okay, so now I think the live load is clear. So you have a same table like this for all the different kinds of buildings where for which you have to consider the live load that is going to be, that needs to be considered. Okay, next is the wind load. So for the project building, now the input consideration for that project is the location is at Chennai. The column to column spacing is 5 meters. The height is 6 meters. The width of the building is 15 meters. And the length is 30 meters. Hope you remember all these details, right? This is the 30-meter span building, 15 meters. The height of the building is 6 meters. So the location, project location is in Chennai. Okay. So now let's see how to calculate the wind load. For calculating the design wind speed, you have to know the values of K1, K2, K3 and K4, where K1 is the risk coefficient, K2 is the terrain category, K3 is the topography factor, and K4 is the new value that is added in the latest IS 875 part 3 code, that is for cyclonic region. Since we have lot of cyclones coming up, they have considered this value. Let me take you through the code so that you get a clarity on. Yeah. So this is IS 875 part 3 that I have opened now. Hope everybody is familiar with this code. Okay, please do thorough and make yourself thorough with this code alone. IS 875 part 3 is very important for wind load calculation. So this is what I was talking about. K1 is the probability factor, K2 is the terrain roughness, K3 is the topography factor, and K4 is the importance factor. So normally the K1 factor we will be calculating depending upon the if you take this values, normally K1 values are taken from all the number depending upon the building type, how many years you are going to design that building, that is the life of the structure. The K1 factor will be 1 if it is depending upon the wind speed. For Chennai it is 50 meter per second, so it is 1. I have considered 50 all general buildings and structures with a 50-year lifespan. So the K1 value is 1. And K2, if you see, it's normally considered from the tables provided. Here, if you see the terrain positions, so it is the height of the building is only 6 meters. So for which terrain category it comes? So we have different terrain categories specified here. If you see here, I think you might be aware of this is the category 2. If you see here, the category 1, that is open terrains. There will be no obstruction. So there will be a flow of heavy flow of wind. This category 2 is an open terrain with well scattered, where the obstruction of height of the buildings will be something around 1.5 meters to 10 meters. So in category 3, it is numerously closed spaced obstructions. If you see this is a category 3 class. And category 4 is like, here if you see, it is totally closed space. If you are in constructing somewhere inside the city limits, then you can consider this category 4. And the K2 value depends upon the height different terrains. Okay, so this is how you calculate the K2 value. And K3 value also you will be fine depending upon the category of factor topography factor. Okay, so you have to identify all these values of K1, K2 and K4. K4 for cyclonic, this is the newly added values. If you see here, K4 post cyclonic impedance, how much? 1.3. Industrial structures means 1.15. All other structures is 1. So depending upon these, you have to identify the values, and that's how I have come up with these values of K1, K2, K3, K4 and VB. VB is nothing. Wind speed of Chennai is 50 meter per second. So 1 into 1 into 1 into, since it's an industrial cyclonic area, it is 1.15 into 50. So the wind speed calculated is 57.5 meter per second. So this is how I have arrived with the value of K1, K2, K3, K4, and I have come up with the wind speed. Next is we have to calculate the wind pressure, that is 0.6 into Vz square. If you see in the code, yeah, I think now the code is visible. Yeah, if you see design wind pressure, how to calculate it? Pz is equal to 0.6 Vz square. So here we have already calculated the value of in the PPT. If you remember, it is Vz we have already calculated, right? So now we have to calculate PZ, and that VZ value we have to multiply it with 0.6. So you will get the design wind pressure. Next formula is, this is for design wind pressure PD. Okay, so for that you have to calculate KD into KA into KC into PZ. So KD is the value where it is specifies the wind directional factor, and Ka is the average area average factor. If the building is a building area is less than 10, then you need to consider 1. If the building area is somewhere around 25 then meter square, then you have to consider 0.9. For building area greater than 100, 0.8, we will be considering 0.8, since our building area is 180 m square. Okay, so after that, this is the formula you have to apply. So now let me share the PPT for you to get an idea. As I said, the wind pressure will be calculated by 0.6 Vz square, which is 0.6 into 57.5, this value Vz square. Okay, so Vpz is equal to 1.983 kilonewton per meter square. So now we are going to calculate the KD, KA, KC from the formula that I have explained. So the KD value KA value, KC value I have taken from the table from the codebook IS 875 part 3, and this PZ value is what I have identified here, 1.983. So from that I have calculated the PD value. Okay. And this 0.9, I think you might not be aware of how this Ka is calculated, because it depends upon the area, right? Tributary area. This is the height of the building. This is the length of the building. So height into length gives 180 meters square. That's how it is greater than 100. So I have considered 0.9 from the code. As the code says, if it is greater than 100 meters square, then you have to consider 0.9. So that is how I have come up with these values. This KD and KC also I will just explain you so that you will get more clarity on that. So this is how this 0.8 I have come up with, and this KD and KA, this K normally 0.9 is to be considered for square, rectangular and triangular building. So that's why I have considered 0.9. Okay. So KA factor from the table I have considered, and KC factor I have considered from here. If you see here 0.6 coefficient, these values, no, right? Combination factor C in 7.3.3.13. So if you see below, everything is depending on the code. Normally, when you are doing a project by yourself, you won't stress yourself much in calculating the wind loads. But while you're working on a company in a project, this needs to be identified. So this 7.3.3.13 KC value is considered as 0.9. So these are the values that I have used in the calculation. Okay, clear? KC into KC is 0.9, the building area is 0.8 and KD is 0.9. So that's how I've come up with this PD value. So normally for calculating the wind pressure, we need to know about the internal pressure coefficient and the external pressure coefficient. Normally we will consider the building like 50% of opening is provided in the building. Okay, so that is the worst condition that we will consider, and that's why we are providing CPI value as plus or minus 0.5. So this external pressure coefficient normally we will be taking from table 5 and 6 of IS 875, and that mainly depends upon the height, weight and length of the building. So let me take you to the code there so that you get more idea. So this is what I was telling, table 5 and 6. Okay, so this is the external pressure coefficient. So this table is mainly made in such a way that your height of the building is 6. For example, I'm taking our project only. Okay, the height of the building is 6 and the width of the building is 15. So if you divide 6 by 15, it's 0.4, which is less than 0.5, right? 1 by 2 is 0.5. So this is the apt thing. This is the table that we need to follow. In that, we have one more building ratio that needs to be checked. 1 less than length is 30, right? 30 divided by width, that is 15. So it is 2. 1 is less than 2, less than 3 by 2. 3 by 2 is what ratio? So this we can't follow because this is 2, which is not less than 1.5. So next we have to try this. So this is 1.5 less than length is 30 divided by width is 15. So what is that? 2. So 1.5 less than 2 less than 4. So we need to follow this table. Okay, this is the table that we need to follow for CPE value. Okay, got it. This is our building. This is how the shape of the building. And we have to consider as A, B, C and D. Okay, this is the positive X direction. This is the negative X direction. This is the positive Z direction. This is the negative Z direction. Got it? If you take in the StatPro, if you see, I am just opening the StatPro file. If you see, this is the positive X direction, right? So this is the negative X direction. Opposite direction is the negative X direction. And this is the positive Z direction. Okay, this is the positive Z direction. This is the negative Z direction. Just this 3-dimensional arrow is what you have to use it for application of loads in StatPro also. So if you see in the calculation, the H by W ratio is 0.4. This is 6 by 15. L by is 30 by 15. So now you have to use this F is equal to CPE minus CPI into area into PD. Okay, now this is the main formula that is used for wind force calculation. Okay, this is the table that we have to refer. So the value for A, B, C, D along zero angle. This is the zero angle. If you see in the code, it is specified as theta is equal to 0 here and theta is equal to 90 here. So for application of load in A and B direction, these values you have to consider. So if you see, this 0.7 is from the code. Okay, this value 0.7. Okay, and minus plus or minus CPE, right? CPI value is plus or minus 0.5 is what consider. So first we have to consider for CPE minus CPI. So plus becomes minus. Okay, so it is 0.7 minus 0.5 into area, that is column to column distance, into 5 into 1.388 is this value, PD value. So the formula is CPE minus CPI area into PD. Okay, so first we are finding it for CPI value as plus 0.5. Next we will identify for minus 0.5. Okay, so this is what we have come up with the value for mid columns. If you take the end columns, only half the area has to be taken, that is 2.5. So you can see this 1.388 and 0.695 applied in the model. Okay, if you say this model, this 1.388 is applied in all the center columns and 0.698 for positive x direction. This is the value, that is the wind is acting this direction, right? So the column will get a lateral force from this direction, and it is also in positive direction. Positive, if you see the value, it is positive. So you should apply in this direction. If the value is negative, then you have to apply it in the negative direction, opposite direction. You have to just from the sign symbols only, you have to decide which direction you have to apply. So this is positive direction. So we have positive value. So we have applied from here. If it is negative, then you should have applied from interior, the other face, from the other face of the column. Okay, got it? So now if you see the second loading, it is minus 0.25. This value B we have taken as minus 0.25. Okay, so I have taken minus CPE minus C plus plus of minus 0.5 into 5 into 1.388. So this value 5.205 as applied for mid columns, and minus 2.6 I have applied for end columns. So if you see minus next value 5.205 I have applied in for interior columns, and 2.603 I have applied for end columns. So any doubt in this, guys? I can just clarify if you have any doubt. Guys, any doubt in that? So can I proceed on with the next positive and negative wind load calculation also, so that you will not get confused? I just want to make you thorough with the concepts. That's what I'm just asking in intermediate. Okay, great. Would you please show me, ma'am, how to enter the values? I'm new to stat. Okay, just you have to yeah. So I think I have to share the other screen. This is the basic model that I have created for you in STAD earlier. So this you have to just go to add, create envelope. This is type is 1 minute. So you have to just create on the load case details. So just you have to go add, primary load case is dead load. So just create dead load. This is how you create a dead load combination of loads in the STAT Pro. Okay. Next is live load. Just go to live, select live load and just add it. So next is wind. Just go to wind in
positive x. Okay. I'm just adding it in the short form. Wind in negative x. Negative x. Okay. So the same way you have to calculate the wind load for positive z and wind load for negative z. Okay. So once you have created the frame, normal frame, then you just go and click on the dead load and just keep the cursor on dead and just give an add. So that here the self load already displays, right? Normally it's y minus 1. Since we have for a steel structure, we consider the bolts and nuts. I'm just giving minus 1.05 and just give an add. So that just created. For self load, you have to just click on the whole model and or you can just select assign to view and assign it off. So the whole model is the self load is considered. Okay, like how I have explained earlier. For live load, just click on the live load and add it. Here you have a member load, right? So whatever member load that you want to apply, minus just provide, but all the gravity load should be applied with a negative sign. Minus 7.5 is what I've selected, and it is in the GY axis, and just give add and close it off. Just click on that and just select the rafters what you have to where you have to provide the loads, and just assign to selected beams is what where you have selected the beams alone gets the load acted on it. Assign to view means whole model gets the load acted on it. Use cursor to assign is you can select this load and then you can select the cursor to assign to that beams also. Assign to edit list is just to assign. Once you have assigned it here, you can just go and edit it here with the member number. So these are the 4 member options. Normally you can just select the members and just give to assign to selected members so that you don't make any mistakes on that. Okay, got it? This is how you will be assigning the loads. And if you take the wind load, just add one, and this is for columns, right? So wind loads should be applied as a member load. Okay, member load only should be applied as a member load, and which axis you are going to apply it, whatever values you have calculated in the PPT that I have shown, that you can use an Excel sheet also for wind load calculation. Since I want to explain you clearly, I made it in the PPT. So whatever load calculation with the correct positive sign or negative sign, you have to just add it, and just you have to, whether it is in X direction or Z direction, you have to just check and just add it, and then you have to apply it in the specified columns. Just assign to selected beams and just click on assign. Okay, since the value is so low, you are not visible. This is the way you have to apply the loads. I hope it is clear now, right? Yeah. Okay. So now I'm just explaining you the other wind loads also. Yeah, from the PPT. Yeah. So this value is for 0 and 90, right? So this is A for A section, A side. This is for positive X. This is for negative X. For negative X, you have to take this value. Okay, got it? That is how I have made this. So if you see this is for 0 and 180 degree. 0 and 180 degree, how I have written, I think you will be aware of. Theta angle is 180 degree here and 180 degree here. This is 90 degree and this is 270. Okay, got it? 0, 90, 180, 270. That is how we come up with the angles. Okay. So if you see, this is 0 and 180 degree, where CPI I've considered as plus 0.5. Next is, this is how just a screenshot I have taken from the STAT model, how I have applied. So this is 1.38 and 0.695. Okay, so if you take this here, I have considered minus 0.5. The same thing where the CPI value is plus or minus 0.5, right? First I considered plus 0.5. Next I have considered minus 0.5. So if you see 0.7 plus, that is minus of minus plus. That is how, because CPE minus CPI, right? So 0.7 minus of minus 0.5 into 5 into 1.38. So 0.7 minus of minus 0.5 into 2.5 into 1.388. This for the n columns. So how I have applied is, if you take the positive x direction, if you see the value that I have got is 8.328, right? This is the positive x direction. This is for positive x for CPI value positive 0.5. This is for negative 0.5. So if you see 8.328, I have applied it from positive direction. If you see, this is for the n columns. Okay. So the next value what I have calculated is the next value. This is for 0.25, minus 0.25. If you see minus 0.25 minus of minus 0.5 into 5 into 1.38. So this is just A, B, C, D. And the values here I have replaced with 0.7, 0.25, 0.6, 0.6. That is this value, 0.7, 0.25, 0.6, 0.6. And in the next direction, if you want to calculate, that is the 90 degree and 270 degree, you have to take 0.5, 0.5, 0.75, 0.1. That is also in the table only, 0.5, 0.5, 0.7 and minus 0.1. This minus and plus is what you have to carefully work on when you are working on the wind direction. Okay, got it? So if you see this in 90 degree and 270 degree, I have just applied it for positive 0.5 and I have applied it in the STAD model. If you see, it is like minus 0.5 is the value from the table. This is minus of plus 0.5 is minus 0.5 again, the area into PD value. So this is 6.94. So if you see here, this is the next value, 6.94 is what, since it is minus sign, I have applied it from internally in the minus x direction. Now got it? Since everything was positive, I have applied it from here. Since it's minus 6.5 is what I got the value, 6.94, I have applied it in the internal direction. Okay, got it? And now we will be seeing on the load application of rafters. Okay, so now I think the column load application, you are clear now. So this is how I have calculated. And if you see the rafter load calculation, this is another table that I have taken from IS 875. This is table 5, right? This is for walls and rectangular cladding buildings. And depending on the H and W value, H length, height and W width of the building, these tables which you need to find, you have to choose. This is the external pressure coefficient for pitched roofs. That is, if the roof is like this, you have to consider this table. And if you have a monoslope roof, that is, if the slope is of this type, you have to consider this values for height, theta angle, 5 degree, 10 degree, because there is only one angle, right? So you have to, depending upon the angle slope, you have to consider which table, which values needs to be considered for height and length. Okay. So if you see for pitched roof, height by width ratio, if you see, height is 6 meters and width is 15 meters. So it is less than 1 by 2, right? Earlier we saw in the PPT that we calculated the H by W as 0.4, which is less than 0.5. So we need to follow this table only. And if you see here, the degrees, normally our angle height is less than 6 meters. The height is only 6 meters, right? So we have to, normal the slope provided will be 10 degree only. So for 10 degree, what is the value here? 1.2, 1.4, 0.8, 0.6. So now I am going to the PPT. So if you see the PPT here, I've taken these values, minus 1.2 because my height of the building is less than 0.5. That is height by W with ratio. So minus 1.2, 0.4, 0.8, 0.6. So in this you have to see, yes, this is the type of building we have. This is E. This building is divided as half. and that half building is divided as EF and GH for providing the wind load in the rafters. Okay, so while providing wind load in the rafters, you have to provide for 1/4 of the building. This is half and this is half of the half, right? So you have to divide the building this way and you have to apply the loads. So in this case, for providing load on the top roof rafters, EF is 1.2. That is, EF is this side and GH is this side. So if you see, EF is this side of the building and GH is this side of the building at theta is equal to 0 degree. Okay, so theta value at 0 degree, this is the EF and GH value you have to apply. So I have applied EF and GH value minus 0.5 plus 0.5 for plus 0.5 of CPI value and into 5 into the same this area, and the PD value is the same. The only CP and CPI value is what you have to be careful of. CPE value you have to take from the quotes, and CPI value first you have to work out for positive 0.5 and then you have to work out for negative 0.5. This I have worked for theta 0 degree and 180 degree for positive 0.5 and 0 to 180 degree for negative 0.5. Okay, got it? And if you see this value, it's 11.785. And if you see here, I have applied it here in the model. I have just differentiated here, right? This is the values I have applied. If you see, I have applied it here. Sorry. This is 11.78. If you see in the rafter, top rafter, I have applied. The values that we got is 11.798 and 6.246. Okay, so this one way, and the other one, if you see, sorry, the end only I have provided, and this is for the succession type. So for wind loads of if you come to this part, I think I have to show my code now. I'll share the sheet. Yeah. So now you got it. So this is half of half is what you have to apply it for the rafters. So it is EG, EF and GH. So in this half for the outer column rafters, you have to apply. If you have, see in our thing, it is 6 bays. If you have a 7 bay, then you have to apply the maximum loading to the maximum number of bays, and the other loading, that is the F part of loading, to the minimum number of bays. Because if you see here in the outer side, the wind flow will be heavy from outside, right? If you see here, the wind flow will be very heavy because we have a very huge opening. We will be having, this is the entrance, or both side will be having a very huge opening at 90 degree and 270 degree. So that at that case, you have to consider, see, 9.022 and 7.634, right? So if 9.022, I think I have to share this model. If you see 9.022 and 7.634. So 9.20022, the heavy, I have taken it for 4 spans. And 7.634, I have taken it for lesser spans. And in the next case, I might have taken the, see, this span and this span, right? So in this case, if you see, it is for when the wind load is from theta x angle, that is 0 degree and 90 degree, this whole rafters get affected. Just imagine and see, when you are constructing a building, you are applying a load from here, the whole rafters get affected, right? Because of the flow of the wind. There will be a succession from these windows to the top. So that is where the effect of that portion will be very heavy. So you are applying it from here. So when you are applying a force from here, these two rafters will get affected. So when you are applying in that concept, the force will be here, heavy for the first 4 rafters, that is the maximum focus where the outer portion is concerned, and the back rafters will get a very low force when wind is applied from here. When it is on the other case, wind will be heavy from the other side. Okay, got it? So if you see these values, again I have taken it from minus 0.85 and minus 0.6. So this concept alone you have to understand when you are applying it for rafters. So this is how you will calculate the wind load for the building. And next is what you have to do the analysis. Okay, so I will just show the, I've just considered few load combinations also. I will just make you go through that. This is as per the IS codes. You have different load combinations like low serviceability combinations. You have load combinations like if you see IS 456 code, you have load combinations, how you have to categorize also. So this is how you have to categorize the load combinations. Then you have to do the run analysis and you have to identify the reactions that comes from the supports and you have to use it for foundation design. So I think I have explained you clearly. So if you want to you want to know more about the designs of PB structures, other building designs, or if you want to do a high rise building design, then you can always feel you can go to our skilling website and see there are many masters program that we are offering for you, where we go in detail like this. So it is like we want you to make you understand the concepts thoroughly and understand it in such a way that you work on projects independently. So I will just explain you on the courses that we offer on skilling. So this is the skilling website. You can just go to our website and see we have master certification program in high rise building, in steel structures, in bridge design and analysis, exclusively for StatPro, where you will be learning how to design an RC building, industrial building, and if you see this coursework, you will be learning metro viaducts also. If you see metro via projects are all over in India, it is coming up. If this course is exclusively for ETABS and SAFE software, who wants to excel in ETABS coursework. And the next course is precast program in precast and pre-stressed and concrete structures, which is exclusively for precast. So this is an industrial structure program where I took one module from that and taught you. So this is just a 2-week session that I just thought I will give an idea. So here you can learn, if you enroll in this coursework, you can learn in detail the pipe rack structures, gantry girders, lateral loads, other kind of buildings, SAP 2000, foundation design, structural steel connection designs, everything in detail. So this is how the teaching methodology will be there in our courses. So please do make sure that you can just visit our website and you can understand the concepts. Tomorrow we will be having a different concept on ETABS, where I will not be taking you through the ETABS software. I will be insisting in teaching you the fundamentals of earthquake engineering in clear, so that you get a grip of what earthquake engineering. So now today you got dead load, live load, and wind load, right? So in that coursework, it is more into, this is what one of the coursework that I'm going to cover tomorrow. Just a brief of introduction of that coursework is what I'm going to do. So I think hope this session, I think you found it useful. So please give your valuable comments.